Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point. And we are here with, I believe, day 12 of testimony, which was actually September 3rd. There were two people that testified on this day. One was someone who went by the name Kate, and I believe Kate was JD10, and then she was the one that had the friend that passed away. I could be wrong, but I believe that that's who this is. And then the second person was a lead genius from Apple, working and talking about the iPhone and kind of tying in the whole situation involving Faith and the pictures that were sent to Lydia Agu, who was Faith's attorney, and how Don Russell was able to get those pictures. And so it's going to put some questions to rest as to what actually took place. And so the court is about to start. And let's see, Donnelly asks, everybody can have a seat. Do I need to decide this motion today? There was a sidebar the previous day that was a pretty lengthy sidebar. And so Getty says no. And then Donnelly, I have a few questions about it, or we can do it afterwards. Canick, good morning, Your Honor. Hi, all right. I received the defense motion in limine. I do not know how you want to respond to it. If I do not have to decide it today, I think it can wait. When were you planning to produce the evidence? And then Getty's, certainly not today, and the earliest would be late next week, because we're not meeting until late next week. Donnelly, okay, so let's see what we can get done with the testimony today, and then before we break for the mercifully long weekend, I will just ask you a couple of questions about it. Oh, Mr. Scholar is not here? Canick, no, he should be right back. Donnelly, okay, is it okay to get moving? Canick, yes. Donnelly, so I have no recollection of what we did yesterday. Are we putting a new witness on now? Geddes, yes. Donnelly, so let's get the witness. Which witness is it? Geddes, we're calling Kate. Donnelly, Kate only? Geddes, do you want me to let you know where we are in the binders? Donnelly, that would be most helpful. Then there was a discussion held off record. And then Donnelly, Mr. Scholar, I was told by the other lawyers that we will talk about this motion in limine right before we break because they are not planning to put it in today. And then Mr. Scholar, okay, thank you. Donnelly, okay, all right, let's get the jury, please. Then the witness enters the courtroom, and then Geddes, you can have a seat. There is a pause, and then the clerk does the traditional all rise, you may be seated. And then Donnelly, all right, good morning, everybody. We are ready to begin with the testimony of the next witness. I just want to see the lawyers at the sidebar for a brief moment with the court reporter. And then that sidebar is redacted, one page. And I think they're basically talking about this motion in limine that Scholar filed, and it was under seal. Hold on, let me see if I can go into Pacer and see if they list what that motion was about, because I think I talked about it in a previous video. Okay, Jane Doe number 7 is Javante Cunningham. And so that document is still sealed, but there was something that they wanted to file or restrict her from saying, and I'm sure it was probably the comments that she did eventually make on yesterday about Aaliyah and the alleged incident on the back of the bus. And then Jane Doe. Okay, so Kate is Jane Doe number 11, and then the deceased friend is Jane Doe number 12. Okay, so it says, all right, the witness is here. Could you call your next witness? Geddes, yes. The government calls Kate. Then the clerk, please stand and rise. Raise your right hand. So we go through that whole swearing in procedure. And then Donnelly gives her lecture about talking into the microphone. And if you have questions, ask her, not the attorneys. And then Kate, having been first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. Geddes, good morning. Good morning. Donnelly, let's make sure the microphone is on. I think you've got to turn it on. It is right at the top. Witness, good morning. Donnelly, no, tap it, okay? Geddes, well, we had to go through this with every single witness. Okay, I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 60. Do you recognize what is shown in Government Exhibit 60? Yes. What is that? My photo. The government offers Government Exhibit 60. Canic, no objection. Donnelly, okay, this is in evidence. You can publish it. Geddes, and I am now showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 60A. In 60A, is that same photograph that was in Government Exhibit 60 from a moment ago? Okay, and then for those of you new to my readings, the lawyer or the government is asking the question, the witness is answering, so I'm not going to, give say Geddes and then Kate, Geddes, Kate. I'm just going to read through this. So if there's a question being asked, it is assumed that it is Geddes, and then the response is Kate. And then if Kate asks a question in response to Geddes' question, then I'll let you know that it's Kate asking the question. So Kate replied, yes. And is below that your true first and last name? Yes. So the government offers 60A. No objection. Okay, that is in evidence. And then Geddes, published to the jury only. Geddes, finally, I am showing the witness what is marked for identification as Government Exhibit 60B. Is that again that same photograph and below that the name Kate? Yes. And today we are going to call you just by Kate. The government offers 60B. Canic, no objection. Donnelly, okay, this is in evidence. Okay, and then before we pick up, there was something I wanted to share. I believe, we've been talking about all these redacted sidebar conversations. And so I believe I said this once before, but when those sidebars are redacted, it's because they're most likely talking about stuff that hasn't already been entered into evidence. And so they're having conversations about either people they want to enter as witnesses, or it's questions that haven't been approved by the judge. Well, not necessarily questions approved, but evidence that hasn't been approved by the judge. Because when you're in court, you can't just go up there and just start bringing up stuff that may be totally irrelevant to what the testimony is about. And so if they have evidence that they need to enter, they have to get approval from the judge. And the reason they're trying to get some of this stuff approved at this point is because they had a time period before the trial started where they were supposed to say what evidence, what witnesses, and all of that stuff that they plan to call. And so if they miss that deadline and now they have new information that may have come to them since those deadline passed, then they have to get the judge to approve entering some of that stuff. And so they're having these sidebars because they're trying to argue why this stuff needs to be in. And the reason that it's redacted is because they don't want it to get out. Like, some of this stuff is being held outside of the jury, and the jury doesn't know anything about it. And so they don't want that information getting out. And then I believe I was reading, if I'm understanding what I was reading correctly, and I'm going to ask one of the court reporters if I'm understanding it correctly, but I believe in about 3 months, in about 90 days, all this redacted stuff in the transcripts would then be unredacted. And then people, but you would have to, I guess, at that point, purchase the transcripts again or whatever. But I think the transcripts will be cheaper down the line. I believe the cost of them go down as it goes along. And then you'll be able to see what all that redacted stuff was in about 90 days. And then also, I sent a letter to the courts under the Freedom of Information Act to see if we can get these transcripts and get them for free or at a lower cost than what the court reporters are trying to sell them for. And then I will let you guys know how that goes. The reporter who told me how to do it basically said that what the government does is they allow the court reporters to sell the transcripts to make extra money. And so you basically aren't going to get a cheaper transcript from the reporters. You are going to have to go through the courts to get copies from the court of the transcripts. And you all know my voice is going because it's been really rainy here a lot over the past couple of weeks. And I keep getting caught in the rain and then reading these transcripts. So I am kind of losing my voice. And I probably need to go get me a cup of peppermint tea. But we're going to press on in the moment. Okay. So then Geddes asks, do you recognize the individual in government exhibit number 1? Yes. Who is that? Rob. And do you personally know him? Yes. Do you see him in the courtroom today? Yes, I do. Can you point to him and describe an article of his clothing? He appears to be wearing a white shirt with a gray suit jacket, indicating the defendant. And that was Donnelly. Geddes, thank you. Okay, what was the nature of your relationship with the defendant? We had been introduced and became friends. And at some point, did you begin a sexual relationship with him? Yes. When did you meet the defendant? Sometime in the year of 2001. In what city were you then living? I was living in Chicago, Illinois. And approximately how old were you when you first met the defendant in 2001? I was 27 years old. How were you introduced to the defendant? Or how did you come to meet him? Through an acquaintance of both of ours. And where did you spend time with the defendant? We had spent time in his recording studio and in various cars he had and public places. And when you say public places, are you referring to bars and clubs and things of that nature? Yes, we had been to the movies and concerts, and he had taken me out a few places. Okay, let me put a pin here. I'm glad that they're, like, I don't know who Kate is, or Kate about to tell the truth or tell some stories, but I'm glad that they're introducing witnesses that were older, you know, instead of trying to say that he was out there preying on, you know, 13, 14, 15-year-olds. We see that there are older people. And then one thing about, you know, people that have an affliction to an affinity to younger people is that they're usually not attracted to older people. Now, what the defense need to do is bring Demetrius' sister in there and talk about how she seduced the man and took advantage of him. But anyway, I think it's a good balance, and it'll give the jury something to think about, because most people that like young people who have a disease, which if you're messing with 13-year-olds, you probably have a disease, that those people wouldn't want to be bothered with older people. Like, they are, that's what they like and that's what they go after. And so I think it is a plus for the defense that they are introducing these older witnesses. Okay, and so it says, I'm showing the witness what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 525U. Do you recognize what's shown in 525U? Yes, I do. What is that? It appears to be the entrance, a gated fence for one of his business operations. And which operation was that? A recording studio of his. And was that recording studio the recording studio that you just testified you spent time in with the defendant? Yes, it is. And I am also showing the witness what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 525Q. Do you recognize that as well? Yes, I do. What is that? It is an entrance to the recording studio, which was on the side of the building. Now, what was the routine that you followed when you went to see the defendant at the recording studio? When I arrived there, or how I was, when you arrived there, when I would arrive there, you would, if there were cars before you, you would wait until your car would pull up to the gate. And there was a side panel of buttons, I believe, to the left by the driver's door, and you would hit a button or code, and somebody would come on the microphone and you would identify yourself. And would the gate then open if you were allowed in? What happened once you got through the gate? You would find a parking lot. Now, why she keep talking about you? She asking, what did you do? What did you see? What did you experience? And she talking about you would. No, sweetheart, you're supposed to say, I would find a parking space, not you would find a parking space. As if you're talking, what is it, third person or something? No, not third person. Yeah, is it third person where you're talking like it's not you that you're talking about? Anyway, then she says, and then what? You would exit your car and go to the side door. And there were security cameras, so they would see who they would let in. You had to be buzzed in. You couldn't just open the door. From that, I remember. And once you were inside and had been buzzed in the location, where would you go? You would stand right at the door when you would walk in, and there would be a person sitting at the desk, and they would ask for your identification. And were you asked to sign anything else? Yes. What were you asked to sign? A document stating I was over 18 with my identification. And do you recall what else was in the document? No, perhaps not recording anything or taking any pictures while inside. And after you signed that document, and I think you said you also provided an identification, is that correct? On many occasions, yes. Okay, what would happen after that? One of the workers would take you to various places of the building. And did you spend time in different locations within that studio? Yes. And you testified that one of the workers would take you to various locations. Do you recall the different rooms within the studio where you would spend time, or you spent time? Yes. Where in the studio did you spend time? You would like me to list all the rooms? Yes. There were 2 large recording rooms. I believe they were labeled A and B, but I can't be for certain. So you would either go to one of the recording rooms where Rob was present, or you may go to a different room. If he was in a different room, where you would be in a different room waiting for him to come join you. Okay, were there times when you spent time in a room on that first floor of the studio? Not routinely. Were there ever times though? I believe there were some chairs by the front office, so on occasion, very rarely, I might have sat there until I went somewhere else. And then, were there also locations on the second floor where you would go to wait for the defendant? For the best I recall, I believe we were always up some flights of stairs. And was there a room on that second floor where you would often wait for the defendant? I believe the majority of the rooms were on the second floor, even the recording studios, but I can't be for certain. Okay, let me stop here. So I told you guys a couple of days ago that, and I might not have said it in the video, I might have said it on Twitter, but in any event, a lot of these people, so they gave us this long, this dramatic long list of additional uncharged witnesses that they were going to call. And basically, it seems like some of these people, they just went through Susan Logan's lawsuits and they pulled these people in. And some of these people don't want to be there. And it looks like Kate might be one of them people that, because she sued R. Kelly, that is why she is being called in, but she didn't necessarily reach out to the government and say, hey, I'm a victim, I want to be a part of this case. So, unless her testimony changed real quick, it doesn't seem like she really has much to offer. But once again, we're grateful that she was 27 at the time that she met him. Okay. So, Geddes, now you testified earlier that there was a time when you were, in fact, engaged in a sexual relationship with the defendant. Is that correct? Yes. Was anyone other than the defendant a part of your sexual encounters with him? Rarely. But were there times when someone else was? Yes. And whose idea was that? Rob's. Do you recall the first time that another individual was part of a sexual encounter with him? Yes. What happened? We had been in the recording studio and somehow he had mentioned that there was another female in the building and we should all get together. How did you respond? I said, that's not something I am interested in. It's not something I have participated in. What happened next? He then proceeded to tell me that it would, I don't remember the exact words, but proceeded to tell me to try, see how it goes or something of that nature. And what, if anything, did the defendant do to facilitate that happening? Well, after several minutes of, I'm not interested in that and well, just try it, he then escorted me to a different room. And what happened after that? And then when we were in that room, he had taken a blindfold and put it on my eyes. So it was just him and I in the room and he had put a blindfold on my eyes. And what, if anything, did the defendant say before or as he put a blindfold over you? I don't recall. What was the purpose of the blindfold? What did you understand the purpose of the blindfold to be? Perhaps to make me comfortable, that because I didn't want to see another individual there? Okay, what happened after that? Because I had the blindfold on, I don't know, held my hand and had me walk a few steps, I believe, to like an adjoining room. And then what? And he told me to put my arms out and just help me kneel down. And was there a time when you learned that another person was in the room? Yes, my hand touched somebody's leg. And what happened after that? I heard another female say something and that's all. Do you then have a sexual encounter with that other female? Well, he had placed my hand maybe on her upper torso. And then what happened? Him and I engaged in intimacy and that's it. Okay, when you say him and I, are you referring to the defendant? Right, Rob. And what if, I don't need you to be detailed, but what, if anything, happened between you and the female in the room or the other person in the room? Nothing. I had the blindfold on. My hand touched her leg and maybe on her torso. And what, if anything, was the defendant doing or saying as this was happening? Well, I couldn't see what he was doing because I had a blindfold on, but he was touching me, so I don't know what else he was doing. Was the defendant telling you what to do? No. Did anything else happen with that female? Did anything else happen with the female in the room that day? No. I couldn't see what she was doing. I could tell somebody was there. Okay. How did the defendant respond to your reaction in the room that day? Well, once we had gotten in the room with the other female, yes. Okay, his hands were on me. We were engaging in intimacy, so there wasn't really a reaction. Was there a time when the defendant asked you to leave the room? Not on that occasion, no. Was there another occasion with the female where the defendant asked you to leave the room? Yes. And just generally speaking, what was the nature of that encounter with the female? There was no physical interaction, but it was more just like, I suppose, my attitude about being present with another female. And what do you mean? Can you explain what you mean by that? It was something I did not want to participate in, so it was more of my reaction. And did you make your feelings known in any way to the defendant? Yes. And how did the defendant respond? Eventually just said, go into the other room. And did you then go into the other room? Yes, I did. After that encounter or those encounters with the other females and the defendant, what, if any, conversation did you have with the defendant about your concerns? I had expressed to him that I worried about multiple sexual partners. I worried about the AIDS virus. And were you concerned about potentially contracting some type of sexually transmitted disease? Yes. And did you make that clear to the defendant? Yes. Now, I want to talk about before you first had sexual intercourse with the defendant. What, if anything, did you ask him prior to first engaging in sexual intercourse with him? And let me stick a pin here, because since they're talking about STDs, I think I'm going to go back and read the testimony from the Dr. Chris McGrath. Remember, he's the longtime friend that says that he diagnosed R. Kelly with the STD, with herpes. I think I'm going to go back and read that testimony also at some point this week, so we can get some clarification on was there an official diagnosis or not, because there seems to be some confusion about that, because everybody keeps harping on the fact that at one point he did a test and the test came back negative, but then at some point later he did give a diagnosis. And so we're going to go back and revisit that now that we have the transcripts. Okay, so then Getty says, now I want to talk about before you first had sexual intercourse with the defendant. What, if anything, did you ask him prior to first engaging in sexual intercourse with him? Prior to it, I had asked if he was going to wear something. And are you referring to protection? Yes. And how did the defendant respond? At first, he just kind of looked at me quizzically. And what happened after that? I repeated it and I said, are you going to use something? And what happened? He just said no. And did you then engage in sexual intercourse with the defendant without any contraceptive? Yes. Okay, girl, it's on you at this point. Okay, what, if any, conversation did you have with the defendant about your concerns in doing so? I had asked him if he was, quote unquote, okay. And what did you mean by that? I was referring to if he had any sexually transmitted diseases. How did the defendant respond? It was either kind of a look or no, or I don't recall the actual answer. At any point, did the defendant disclose to you that he had an STD? No. And when you asked the defendant if he was okay, was that in the context of engaging in sexual intercourse with him in his not wearing any form of protection? Yes, we were at that point, and it was right before the first time it was going to happen. What, if any, disease did you contract after you began a relationship with the defendant? The herpes virus. What were your first symptoms? A small bump and some itching or some, like burning, a little pain. And on what area of your body was this? My lower region. Was it in your vaginal area? Yes. What happened after that? Due to the tiny bump and the burning, I went to see an OBGYN. An OBGYN? Mm-hmm. And what, if anything, happened when you went to the OBGYN? The doctor took a scraping and sent it to the lab, and it came back a positive diagnosis. Now, at the time, a positive diagnosis for what? Herpes. At the time that you contracted herpes, were you sexually active with anyone other than the defendant? No. What, if anything, did you say to the defendant after you learned that you had contracted herpes? At some point in time, I said, I think you gave me something. And did the defendant respond? There was no response. When you told the defendant that you thought he gave you something, do you remember the context in which you described that? As a where we were, or did you make clear in any way that you meant by that he gave you something? It was just a statement, I think you gave me something. And what were you trying to convey to the defendant? That I had contracted an STD. And I'm sorry, how did the defendant respond when you told him that? There wasn't an answer. Did he ask you any questions? No. Did there come a time when you pursued legal action against the defendant? Yes. Do you recall when that was? 2004. And did you retain a lawyer? Yes. Who did you retain? Mrs. Susan Logans. Okay, let's stop here because let's talk about Susan Logans, who they have been trying to get to that courthouse since this trial began, and she is refusing to come. So I need to find out what the status is of Susan testifying in this case, because they're supposed to be wrapping this up in the next day or two, and we still haven't heard from Miss Susan. So, Geddes. And why did you decide to pursue legal action against the defendant? Canick. Objection. Donnelly. Overruled. What caused you to seek a lawyer? Due to the diagnosis, I didn't know if there would be potential medical costs in my future that wouldn't be covered by insurance. And when you mention due to the diagnosis, are you referring to your contracting herpes? Yes. Did you eventually reach a settlement with the defendant? Yes. What, if anything, did you receive as part of the settlement? The monetary value? Yes. Oh, she's asking the monetary value, as is that's what they're trying to get an answer to. Geddes, yes. $200,000. And what, if anything, did you understand were your obligations as a result of that settlement? To not disclose the nature of our relationship or speak publicly about him or publish a book or do any media type interviews. And when you talked about him, are you referring to the defendant? Yes. I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as government 930. May I approach? Yes. Geddes, before I do, you testified that you entered into a settlement agreement with the defendant. What, if anything, other than what you've already just testified, do you recall about the settlement agreement that you ultimately reached with the defendant? After the settlement, I would no longer have claims as to him or his business operations or his accountant. Who was his accountant? Daryl. Do you know Daryl's last name? I believe it's McDavid or Mick. I just forgot it. McDavid or something. Have you personally met this individual named Daryl who you just mentioned? Yes. I'm showing the witness what's in evidence. I'm showing what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 12. Do you recognize the individual shown in Government Exhibit 12? Yes. Who is that? Daryl. Is that the individual who you just testified about, who you believe was the accountant and who was included in the settlement agreement? Yes. All right. I am now approaching and showing you what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 930. Did you recognize what's shown in Government Exhibit 930? Yes. I didn't read all the pages though. But did you recognize what it was? Yes. What was it? The settlement agreement. And is this the settlement agreement that you entered between yourself and the defendant? Yes. Okay, I think this is the first person that actually produced a settlement agreement. Was she the only one that held on to hers? Okay, so Geddes. The government offers a Government Exhibit 930. Canick, no objection. Donnelly, okay, this is in evidence. You can publish it. Geddes, can I publish to the jury only, please? Donnelly, yes. Clerk, give me 1 minute. Okay. Geddes, 1 moment. Sorry. Okay, now, prior to coming here today, had you seen this government exhibit? Yes, many, many years ago. And do you still have a copy of the settlement agreement? I don't believe so. Have you seen this settlement agreement in the past 5 to 10 years? No, probably 20 years or close to. Okay, so it was well, they finally dug up a settlement agreement because sis says she don't have her copy no more. She done got her money and ran and wasn't worried about the legalities because I guess she wasn't planning on talking about it anymore. So this was an agreement. You didn't provide this agreement to the government, did you? I did not, no. I'm going to direct your attention to paragraph 7, and it reads, effective upon execution and delivery of this agreement, and then it has your last name, on behalf of herself and her heirs, executors, administrators, representatives, successors, and assigns, hereby forever releases, remisses, acquits, and discharges R. Kelly Publishing Incorporated, Bass Productions Limited, Darryl McDavid, Winkler and McDavid, and to the extent applicable, each of their present and former parent companies, subsidiaries, affiliates, and related companies, and then it goes on from there. Is that the individual, Darryl, that you previously identified? I think you couldn't remember the precise name. Yes. Does that refresh your recollection as to his name? Yes. What is it? Darryl McDavid. And are you familiar with Winkler and McDavid? No, not at all. And as you sit here today, do you have any understanding of why either Darryl McDavid or Winkler and McDavid were included in this agreement? No, no idea. And finally, I want to direct your attention to this last sentence of paragraph 6. And again, it reads, with your last name further represents and warrants that she has provided Kelly with a true, complete, and accurate copy of her medical records. Are those medical records the records from your OBGYN? I believe so. I didn't hand deliver them, but the attorney. Did you provide them to your attorney? I signed a release for her to gather the records, your medical records. Correct. And when you say a release, are you referring to a release that allowed your medical records to be disclosed to a third person? Correct. One moment. And just to be clear, the medical records, did they relate to your herpes diagnosis? Objection. Overruled. Repeat the question, please. The medical records that you understood your attorney was going to obtain, was that related to your herpes diagnosis? Yes. That was the doctor who had given the diagnosis. And again, I'm just showing to the jury only. Is that your signature on that last page? Yes, but I don't believe that's me writing the date. Okay, and what was the date of the agreement? It appears to be 7/30/2004. So July of 2004? Correct. And is that approximately when you remember entering into an agreement with the defendant? Yes. Now, since you have been diagnosed with herpes, have you informed your sexual partners about your diagnosis? Objection. Overruled. Before sexual intercourse? Yes. Yes. And how, if at all, has your herpes diagnosis affected your relationships? It's greatly affected my relationships. How so? Relationships haven't proceeded because of it, and also I have prevented relationships from happening. Because of what reason? Because of the diagnosis. Nothing further. Cross-examination, Canic, yes. And have y'all noticed that the only person that's been cross-examining these people for the past week has been Canic? Like, I can't remember the last time Nicole cross-examined anybody. And remember, Nicole was supposed to be the dragon slayer. Like, she was supposed to have been coming in because she had all this experience in her previous job as a prosecutor in the sex crimes division. And so she was supposed to be coming for these women in this trial. And she's been quiet as a mouse since like the first couple of days of testimony, where she made a couple of gaffes in her opening statement, as well as especially with the Dr. McGrath, the doctor who diagnosed Kelly with herpes, how she was going on and on about something that she really didn't need to be going on and on about. So it seemed like Canic has pulled her in. But we'll see if when the defense presents their case, will she have a more visible role. So, Geddes, when was it that you got the diagnosis that you had herpes? 2001. 2001. When was it that you terminated or the relationship between you and Mr. Kelly? 2004. So after you received the diagnosis in 2001, you dated him for another 3 years? That's correct. And you continued to have sexual relations with him after that diagnosis? Correct. Now, when was it? How old were you when you met Mr. Kelly? As stated before, I was 27. And you were well into your career at that time. Am I correct? Donnelly. I think we discussed this. I think we discussed this earlier. Cannick. Yes. Donnelly. Okay, good. Cannick. And you, okay, I don't even know why Donnelly had felt the need to interject in that moment. Like, she is so annoying. So, Cannick, and your career is a professional career. Am I correct? Correct. And when you met Mr. Kelly, your relationship, or at least the involvement of seeing each other, was somewhat sporadic. Am I correct? That's correct. And that's because the both of you had very busy careers. Am I correct? Correct. Now, you never traveled outside of the state of Illinois to be with Mr. Kelly. No. And when you went to visit with him on the first occasion, you testified that you had to go through a security check. Correct. And that security check, they wanted to see your identification. Yes. And after they saw your identification, you went to the next step of signing a non-disclosure agreement. Not on the first occasion, but that's correct. On a future occasion, yes. On future occasions, okay. Now, when you were with Mr. Kelly, he was never violent towards you. Am I correct? Never. In fact, whenever he was somewhat disappointed or had an issue, he would speak softly. Did he not? That's correct. And you had names that you would call him. Rob. Yes. Robert. Yes. Kels. Yes. And Daddy? At times, Daddy, right? Yes. And did Mr. Kelly ever tell you what to wear? Perhaps only on 2 occasions. And what were those occasions? My first time I recall us talking about my dress, where usually I would go in there anything I wanted. I was around many different seasons and I could wear anything I wanted. And he had invited me to go out. So I had asked him what type of dress I should wear. I didn't know if it was a formal occasion or if it was casual. So I had asked him. And you mentioned there was another occasion. Another occasion, we were going to one of his events, and Rob is fashion forward. That's his business. It's his brand to look a certain way. So he had just mentioned we were all going to wear black. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Now, there were times that you visited with him and you would have to wait for him. At times, yes. And when you waited for him, those were sometimes could be long periods of time. Am I correct? How, like over a few minutes, or let me withdraw it. When you would wait for Rob, were there bathroom facilities available to you? Yes, always. You didn't have any issue using a restroom if you needed to use one. Am I correct? You are correct. And if I had to use the restroom, I would get up and go to the restroom. And what about food? I would just call downstairs if I was hungry. And they would get food to you? Yeah. No long wait or anything like that. Am I correct? Just the time it would take to take the order, and one of his associates or drivers would go get it. He never asked you to write any type of letters or anything, did he? Never a letter, but lyrics? Yes. Lyrics to a song, right? Yes, on one occasion he asked me to help him write down as he was singing, to write down, so I believe it could be published for the recording studio. So just to be clear, he had a tune in his head. And he was trying to work on it. And he asked you to write it down as he moved forward with trying to capture it. Yes, as the music was playing and he was humming it or singing it in his head, he would start to record it, and he had me write down the lyrics so he could refer back or they could be printed. Thank you. To your knowledge, Rob never took any pictures of you. Am I correct? To my knowledge, no. We had not taken a photo together. What about videos? Not that I'm aware of. Now, after you get the settlement from Robert, did you continue to date him? I did not see him face to face after the settlement, but you wanted to continue to date him. Right. Pardon me. You wanted to continue to date him after the settlement? I had called him several occasions after. Okay, now, do you remember a telephone conversation that you had with Robert, and he told you that the reason why he didn't want to see you and be around you was because he was trying to concentrate on his family and Donnelly? Mr. Canick, can I see the parties at the side with the court reporter? Oh my God, here she go again. And of course, it's redacted. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8.5 pages of redactions. Okay. So back in open court with the jury present, Canick, we're almost done. Okay. Now, when you were visiting Mr. Kelly at the studios and he'd asked you to wait in a room, he gave you an explanation as to why he wanted you to wait. Geddes, objection. Donnelly, to the simple fact, did he give you an explanation? That's overruled. The objection is overruled. You can answer just yes or no. Did he give you an explanation if he was late? I'm sorry, could you repeat? Okay, when you were waiting for Mr. Kelly in the room, he gave you a reason as to why he wanted you to wait in the rooms. He would never tell me to wait in the room. Okay. That's it, Your Honor. Nothing more. Any redirect? No, Your Honor. Okay, thank you so much. You can step down. Witness stepped down and was excused. Are you ready to call your next witness? And this time it's Ms. Shahada. Yes. Government calls John Marandona. Donnelly, John Shahada Marandona. Donnelly. While the witness is coming in, can I see counsel at the time for just a second? So there was a sidebar held outside the hearing of the jury. The following sidebar took place outside the hearing of the jury. Donnelly. The court reporters, who are always on the ball all the time, want to know which one of these conferences should be sealed. I take it the last one should be sealed. The one that we just had, the last sidebar. Then we had a sidebar at the beginning. Geddes, today we had a sidebar? I don't think we did. Donnelly, didn't we start with one? Canick, no, because Scholar was outside, and I think the conversation was that if it's not something to today or coming in today. So the sidebar concluded. Donnelly done called so many sidebars, she don't even know what the hell going on in this courtroom. So they're back in court and the jury is present. The witness entered and took the stand. Donnelly, okay, did you swear him in yet? Deputy, I did not. Donnelly, okay, I think they called him already. The deputy, please stand and raise your right hand. So they go through swearing in the witness. And he says that his name is John Marandona Jr., John Mirandona Jr. Donnelly, okay, you can sit down. The witness, thank you. Donnelly. And then she gives him the speech that she gives everybody about talking into the microphone, and if you need anything, repeat it. And then Shahada comes in and says, thank you, Your Honor. Okay, so John Marandona Jr., called as a witness by the government, having been duly sworn, affirmed by the courtroom deputy, was examined and testified as follows. Ms. Shahida, good morning. Good morning. Are you currently employed? I am. How are you employed? I am employed by the Department of Homeland Security as a criminal investigator. And other than being a criminal investigator, do you have any other titles at the Department of Homeland Security? Supervisory Special Agent. Do you work in a particular group? I do. What is that? I supervise the Technical Services Group, which is made up of Computer Forensics Unit and the Technical Operations Enforcement Unit. And is this all part of a division known as Homeland Security Investigations? Yes. Now, how long have you worked for Homeland Security Investigations? I've worked for Homeland Security Investigations, Department of Homeland Security, and one of its legacy agencies since November of 2000. And how long have you held your current position as a supervisory special agent over the Technical Services Group? Since the beginning of November, the beginning of 2014. And apart from you have supervisory responsibilities, correct? Yes. And what type of personnel do you supervise? I supervise computer forensics analysis and analysts and technical enforcement operations officers. And in your duties and responsibilities, apart from supervising computer forensic analysts, do you also engage in duties and responsibilities as a computer forensic analyst yourself? Yes. And have you had training in the area of computer forensic analysis? Yes. May I approach, Your Honor? Yes. I am going to show you what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 345. Thank you. And having now looked at what I just handed you, do you recognize Government Exhibit 345? Yes, I do. And what do you recognize this to be? To be the phone in question that I examined. Donnelly, can you just pull the microphone a bit closer to you? Yes, I'm sorry. Thanks so much. You conducted a forensic examination of this phone. I did. And was this the phone that was seized from the defendant, Robert Kelly, at the time of his arrest? Yes. Now, I am showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 345A. Do you recognize this document? Yes. What is this document? It is the first page of the summary page of a forensic extraction report that I conducted. And fair to say, when you're conducting your forensic examination report, is it a computerized report that's generated? Yes. And can portions of that report be printed out? Yes. But generally, when you're looking at it, it's on a computer screen. Is that right? Yes. And you testified this is the extraction summary of a page, the first page of the extraction summary of the report. Yes. I move to admit Government Exhibit 345. Any objection? Canick, no objection. Donnelly, okay, that's in evidence. And may we publish it, please? Now, looking here, does this indicate that the phone you examined was an iPhone X with a certain serial number? Yes. And you are listed here as the examiner. Is that correct? Yes. And going down, is there an Apple? Was there an Apple ID associated with this phone? Yes. And is that Sylvester Kelly 12 at iCloud.com? Yes. And then further down where it says last used MSISDN is the number +1 678-756-8219 listed? Yes. And is that the last used number on that phone that you examined? Yes. And finally, on this page, does this indicate a time zone? Yes. And what does that mean? That is the time zone that was set while the phone was in operation. And it's skewed based off universal time. And here does it say, is the time zone listed as Chicago? It is Chicago -6 UTC. So UTC -6, so Chicago time. Yes. And just to be clear, the phone number ending in 8219 that we just spoke about, that's the last phone number that was associated with this phone. Is that right? Yes. May I approach, Your Honor? Yes. I am going to start by showing the witness what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibits 344A through 344K and 348A and 348B. I don't want to lick my fingers. Okay, I don't even know where that came from. I guess it was multiple pages and she was asking him to flick through them. So now, starting first with Government Exhibit 344A, is this a portion of your extraction report of the phone of Government Exhibit 345 that sets forth certain SMS messages and MMS messages between that phone and telephone number 312-513-1020? Yes. And are certain the document is several pages, correct? Yes. And certain messages are redacted, is that right? Yes. I move to admit Exhibit 344A. Canic, no objection. Donnelly, that's in evidence. You can display it. Okay, now, I'd also now like to show you what I handed you earlier, Government Exhibit 348A. Is this another extraction report from the forensic report you've done, but now in a chat view of SMS messages involving the Government Exhibit 345, the 8219 phone, and that same phone number that we discussed? Yes. And fair to say that the redacted messages from 344A are excluded in 348A? Yes. And now I'm showing you what you just looked at when I handed it to you, Government Exhibit 348B. Is this again now an extraction report based on your same full forensic report of MMS messages between the phone you examined, Government Exhibit 345, the 8219 number phone with that same phone number 312-513-1020 in chat format? Yes. I move to admit Government Exhibits 348A and B. Canic, no objection. Donnelly, okay, those are in evidence. So, first of all, can you explain what an SMS message is? It is a simple text message, simple message service between two devices. And how about an MMS message? What's that? Multimedia message service, where it would be a simple message with an attachment like a photo or just an attachment of a photo. And the reports we just went through divide up the MMS and the SMS messages. Is that right? Yes. All right. So starting with Government Exhibit 348A, now the messages in green here indicating, are these messages being sent from the device you examined to telephone number 312-513-1020? Exhibit published. Yes. And the first message, this is from October 21st, 2018. It says, call me when you get this message. Is that right? Yes. Donnelly. And if you want, that is in evidence, so you can just have him read it or whatever you like. Shahida. All right, got it. So now, in this, the first message, there's a series of messages between these two numbers from October. The first one was October 21st, then October 23rd, and these appear to be about meeting up. So the 1020 number texts the phone, hey, Sil, I'm prepping to leave in about 15 minutes. It will be around 1:30 p.m. when I arrive for our meeting. Is that cool? And then a response of 2:30. Donnelly, just don't go too fast, okay? All right. I'm not trying to throw you off your game. Just read it slowly. I don't think I need help with that. Donnelly, okay. So as y'all see, there is an example of Judge Donnelly interrupting the prosecution because people feel that Donnelly only interrupts the defense, only calls sidebars for the defense. But as you see here, she interrupts everybody. She's just rude as hell, okay? So we continue. Okay, 2:30 it is. And then again, another text message saying, hey, Sil. And when they're saying Sil is SYL, so I'm thinking that this person who we are eventually going to find out is most likely Don Russell is calling him Sil, I guess for Sylvester, which is his middle name. So he says, Sil, I arrive in the loop at 2:30. It will take me about 10 to 15 minutes to walk to the building. Will you be ready at 2:45 or do you need more time? And then some responses from the phone you examined indicating times. 3:15, I'll be ready. Okay, now I want to turn to Government Exhibit 348A. And this is jury only, please. Do you see that in front of you? Yes. And these are the MMS messages, correct? Yes. If we could publish to the jury, please. There are the MMS multimedia messages, correct? Yes. Now, this in green, this is a text message sent from the phone you examined to the telephone number 312-513-1022. 20. Is that right? Yes. And do there appear to be 3 images that were sent? Yes. And the date of this message is October 26, 2018, 10:34 and 23 seconds a.m., correct? Yes. Donnelly, can I just ask you a question about the numbers on 348A? So, the green one, the top has the plus phone number that ends in 1020, and then the blue one also has the same thing. What does that mean? It indicates the number that the text is going to or the number that is sending. I see. Or receiving. It identifies which phone is which. So, Judge, maybe I can ask it clearer. Okay. So, I have in front of you now Government Exhibit 348A, the second page, which has both messages in both green and blue. I think you testified earlier that the messages in green are the ones being sent by the phone you examined, correct? Yes. And the number that appears up top that I'm pointing to, indicating that's the number the phone you examined is sending the text message to. Is that right? Correct. And then now, looking at the text messages in blue, these are responses from that 1020 number to the phone that you examined, correct? Correct. And so the number here indicates that this is the number sending the text message to the phone you examined, correct? Yes. All right. So going back for a moment to Government Exhibit 348B, you testified there were 3 images sent from the phone you examined to that 1020 number on October 26, 2018 at 10:34:23 a.m., correct? Yes. And I have zoomed in a little bit so you could see those photos a little bit more clearly. I am now going to show the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibits 344B, 344C, and 344D. So, I'm starting with 344B, 344C, and 344D. Are these photographs that you extracted from during your forensic examination or that were extracted during your forensic examination and that were the photos that were sent in the MMS message we just went over? Yes, they are full-size versions of those attachments. I move to admit Exhibits 344B, C, and D. Canick, no objection. Donnelly, all right, these are in evidence. Jury only, yes. And so I'll start with 344D, 344C, and 344B. Now, you testified earlier that the way these exhibits are set forth, the MMS messages and the SMS messages are separate, correct? Yes. So I'm showing the jury only again the first page of 348B. Is there a second MMS message sent from the phone you examined to that same 1020 number on October 26, 2018 at 9:14 p.m.? Yes. And actually, I'm sorry, before we get to that, we went over the MMS message that was sent on October 26, 2018 at 10:34:23 a.m. I am now going to turn to Government Exhibit 348A, which is in evidence. This can be for everyone. Now, looking at the second page, is there a response from that same 1020 number to the phone you examined on October 26, 2018 at 12:30:20 p.m.? So, after those 3 images was sent, that states, "Oh, my eyes, she's pathetic. Thank you for sending the tamed pictures." And then following that, another message from that 1020 number to the phone you examined on October 26, 2018 at 2:48 p.m. Question: do you have a way of sending me one more picture showing her phone number at the top? I am going to print it and include it along with the other three and include them in the letter to her attorney. Do you agree that she should really know her attorney? And then I'm sorry, that she should really know her client. And then I'm going to turn now back to Government Exhibit 348B. Jury only, please. The second message here, is that a message from the phone you examined to that same 1020 number on October 26, 2018 at 9:45 p.m. and what's sent to that number is 2 images? Yes. Now I am showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 344E and 344F. Are these the images that were sent in the SMS messages we just went over? Sorry, the MMS messages we just went over. Yes. I move to admit Exhibit 344E and F. Canick, no objection. Donnelly, okay, those are in evidence. And these can be published beyond the jury. Okay. And at the top, does this appear to be a text message exchange involving an individual saved in the phone in the image of the text message as Faith? Yes. All right, now turning back to Government Exhibit 348A, second page. This can be for everyone. I am looking at now, focusing on the bottom text message sent from the phone you examined to the 1020 number on October 26, 2018 at 9:46:06 p.m. and it states, I'm going to get you more, but let me know if you have any questions. The bottom of that is when she was trying to tell me she didn't want to do what she was doing out there in the media. So she was asking me, can we make it stop? And then turning to page 3 of Government Exhibit 348A, there is a response from the 1020 number to the phone you examined on October 26, 2018 at 10:17:40 p.m. that states, make it stop is exactly what we are going to do with the paperwork you signed and the letter to her attorney. She is a very troubled individual that you hopefully will either block or keep at a fair distance. My mother used to say, feed them with a long-handled spoon, like Michael Jackson sang, she's dangerous. Now, I'm switching back to Government Exhibit 348B. This can be for everyone. This is the MMS message now. Is there a message from the phone you examined to the same 1020 number on October 26, 2018 at 10:20:04 p.m. and sending 5 images? Is that correct? Yes. Okay, so just some clarity, excuse me guys, just some clarity on what's taking place here. This is basically Kelly and Russell going back and forth. So there had been a lot of speculation that Don Russell was operating independently, that he contacted the lawyer on his own, that he got these pictures somehow and sent them to the lawyer, got the pictures probably off the internet because, Faith is very present on the internet. And so he probably got the pictures off the internet. He sent this letter without R. Kelly knowing, that he probably forged R. Kelly's signature. So basically what they are laying out with these text messages and these images is proving that R. Kelly was very aware that Don Russell was sending this letter with these photos to the attorney for Faith Rogers, and that he indeed got those photos from R. Kelly. Okay. So I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 344G, 344H, 344I, 344J, and 344K. Are these the images that were sent by the phone you examined in the MMS message we just went over? Yes. I move to admit Government Exhibits 344G through K. Canick. No objection. Donnelly, those are in evidence. Okay, thank you, Your Honor. I'm just zooming in on the images in the MMS message, we just went over, and now I'll display 344K, 344J, 344H, 344I, 344G. I'm just zooming in on the images in the MMS message we just went over, and now I'll display 344K, 344J, 344H, 344I, 344G. Now I want to turn back to page 3 of Government Exhibit 348A. Is there a text message from that same 1020 number to the phone that you did a forensic examination on from December 6, 2018 at 1:38:22 a.m. and focus on the second paragraph of that text message. It states, if you have no plans to reimburse Don for the truck rental, would you please communicate that directly to him? He's agitated about the situation, and you're the one with the power to offer a remedy. Maybe you might consider enriching him for sabotaging the survivors event and sending out cease and desist letters. Their whole production has fallen apart thanks to his actions. Whatever your thought process, he deserves to hear it directly from you. Okay, child. Now, okay, is this Don Mama then entered the building? I'm like confused at this point. Then there is a response from the phone you examined to that same 1020 number on December 6, 2018 at 10:09:16 a.m. I will be more than happy to meet with Don, but first me and you need to talk because I feel that I'm in a very awkward position as well. So if you can come by around 7:30 tonight, that would be perfect. If not, just let me know when you can. Thanks, love you. And then there is a response from the 1020 number on the same date at 10:15 a.m. Okay, I will make preparations to meet you this evening at 7:30 p.m. I'll confirm the time with George. Love you, back at you. Okay, wait a minute. Let's take a pause here. So the 1020 is not Don? Okay, maybe I was wrong about what I said. But anyway, we know that R. Kelly was involved in these pictures being sent. Now we just got to figure out what was the 1020 number, or was that Don's mother's number? Because I've seen that number before in some other communications. But we'll keep reading and maybe we can figure it out as we go. And then there is a response from the 1020 number on the same date at 10:15 a.m. Okay, I already read that. And then a response from the phone you examined, same date, K. Now, I want to turn back to Government Exhibit 348B, the MMS message report, and looking now at the message in blue, that's from the 1020 number to the phone you examined, correct? Yes. And that's from January 30th, 2019. I'm sorry, that's January 30th, 2019 at 12:13 a.m. It states, subject, victorious, followed by 3 exclamation points. It states the paperwork you sent in not consenting to the contract and including a sample of pictures you received totally derailed the case, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Believe me, the paperwork has put a wrench in their program and struck fear in their minds. This has them wondering what else you are capable of, exclamation point, exclamation point. There are more hurdles to go, but at least you can cross this one off the list. Then there is a link to a TMZ website and it states, R. Kelly criminal case closed, New York, NYC, sexual assault. The name Faith, and then if we could now just have jury only, and the last name listed here correct. Yes. Now, turning back to Government Exhibit 348A, page 3, these are the SMS messages. And turning to the last message on that page, there is a response to the MMS message we just went over, and this is dated January 30th, 2019 at 9 a.m. to that 1020 number from the phone you examined. It states, yes, everybody's been sending me that. I'll take any victory I can get. This could be published. Sorry. Now, turning to page 4 of Government Exhibit 348A. Okay, maybe that's cash, maybe. I know that phone number was in one of these indictments, and I believe it was the Don Russell indictment. So it's either Cash's number or Don Russell's mother's number. Y'all let me know in the comments if you remember that number ending with the 1020. So now turning to page 4 of Government Exhibit 348A, these are the SMS messages again, and on the top, this is a message from the phone you examined to the 1020 phone back January 30th, 2019 at 9 a.m. I'm on my way back to sleep. If you can, call me around 7 to that 1020 number. And then below that now is a message, a redacted message from February 21st, 2019 at 1:17 a.m. This is from the 1020 number to the forensic phone. To the phone you forensically examined, and it states, when the docuseries was aired and we answered with the Surviving Lies page on Facebook, the backlash was, quote, you never attack or stoop to the level of your adversarial opponent. And then below that, I'm not going to read each of these messages, but there are a series of messages from March 15, 2019 between the phone you examined and the 1020 number involving meeting up. And that continues on to page 5 of the exhibit. Your Honor, at this point, I'd like to move to admit Exhibit 108A 108A as a certified business record of subscriber information from T-Mobile for telephone number 312-513-1020. Any objection? No. That's in evidence. And Agent Marandano, the phone number that the text communications between the phone you examined and a certain phone number that we just went over, that number was 312-513-1020, correct? Yes. And now, if I could publish Government Exhibit 108A. This is subscriber information for that same phone number. The subscriber name listed is June, no middle name, Barrett, and an address 1826 South Milliard, Chicago, Illinois 60623. And activation date 10/30/2021. Termination date 09/08/2019. Now, showing what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 231A, jury only, this is a notice of delivery page. In the bottom, there's a signature and a name, June Barrett, care of 1826 South Milliard Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, with a phone number 312-513-1020. And the email junespointofview@yahoo.com. Turning to the third page, a signature and notary stamp for a June A. Barrett. Same thing on the next page, and the following page, and the last 2 pages of this exhibit. And the second page of the exhibit dated October 22nd, 2018, to Lydia C. Hills, Esquire. I'm now showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibits 337 and 337A. Do you recognize these documents? Okay, June Barrett is Don Russell's mother, right? Right. Okay. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. So he replies yes. And starting with 337, what is this? It is a printout of part of the forensic extraction report. Is this printout related to a particular image that was saved on the phone you examined? Yes. Does this include the metadata associated with the phone? Yes. Sorry, with the image? Yes. Is there a thumbnail of the image as well? Yes. I'm now showing you 337A. Is that just a full photo of the thumbnail image? Yes. I move to admit Government Exhibits 337 and 337A. Canick, no objection. Donnelly, okay, those are in evidence. You can publish them. Can this go to everybody? Yes, thank you. Okay, starting with 337, there's an image. This is the image in question that was saved on the phone that this metadata relates to. Yes. The 337A, does this appear to be a photo of a driver's license for Robert S. Kelly? It appears to be. And the address listed is 219 North Justine Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60607. I'm now showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 338 and 338A. Is Government Exhibit 338 a portion of your report related to a certain image saved on the phone you examined and the metadata associated with that image? Yes. And is there a thumbnail of the image in 338? Yes. Is Government Exhibit 338 just a full-size photo of that thumbnail image that was saved on the phone? Yes. I move to admit Government Exhibits 338 and 338A. No objection. All right, those are in evidence. And we would publish it, thank you. You want it published to the jury only? This can go for everyone. Okay. So, starting with Government Exhibit 338, is this just the file name for the image that was saved on the phone? Yes. And this is the image here? Yes. Thumbnail of the image? All right. Just so the jury is clear, the dates on top where it says created and modified that relate to 2021, are those dates referring to creation and printing of the report? No. What does that refer to? Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Up here, yes. Yes? And then the dates here under additional file info, is that the dates and times associated with this image? Yes. Now turning to 338A, does this appear to be a photograph of a driver's license and a document underneath for an individual named Cavante Alicia Jones? It does appear to be. Then there is a document underneath with a signature and a printed name, Cavante Jones, and an address. Again, this was recovered from the phone you examined, correct? The 8219 phone. Yes. No further questions. Okay, and you guys know Cavante Jones is Cash Jones. That's her real name, Cavantane or something like that. So, Donnelly, all right, do you have a lot? It's about time for the morning break. Canic, we can take a break. Donnelly, all right, folks. I don't want to. I have no questions. Donnelly, you have no questions? All right, the witness can step down and we'll take our morning break about 10 minutes. Please don't talk about the case at all. So the witness is excused. Deputy, all rise. Then Donnelly, everyone have a seat. How many more witnesses you got? Shahida, we have 2, Your Honor. Donnelly, it seemed like we can fit them in before lunch, don't you think? Yes. Anything that anybody wants to raise before we break just for the morning. Just the morning break. Nothing. Okay, great. Then they are in recess. Then they come back and they do the all rise. Everybody can now have a seat. While we're trying to sort out the technical issue with the pink mark, we can bring the witness in. Who is it, by the way? Stephen Flatney. We fixed the problem. Who is your next witness? Stephen Flatney. Flatney? Okay, then let's get the jurors. All rise. You may be seated. All right, everybody, we are ready to continue with the next witness. The witness is here, but could you please call him, please? Yes, the government calls Stephen Flatney. Please stand and raise your right hand. So we go through the formalities. The judge gives her disclaimer about speaking into the microphone and speaking loudly. And then the witness, yes, Your Honor. Donnelly, go ahead. Shahada. Judge, before I start with this witness, there is one exhibit, 344A, that I laid the foundation for with the last witness, but forgot to offer. I discussed it with Mr. Canick, so the government now would offer government exhibit 344A. Canick, no objection. Donnelly, that's in evidence. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Are you currently employed? Yes, I am. Where do you work? I work for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, New York Division. And what is your title at the FBI? I am an information technology specialist forensic examiner for the Computer Analysis Response Team, or CART, C-A-R-T. Now, how long have you been doing that? For 16 years. And as part of your responsibilities, do you receive training in forensic examination? Yes, we do. Is that including of cell phones and other devices? Yes, ma'am. Do your duties include conducting forensic examinations of electronic devices? Yes, they do. I want to show the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government's Exhibit 913. May I approach? Yes. Prior to your testimony here today, have you had an opportunity to review Government Exhibit 913? Yes, I have. Is Government Exhibit 913 an excerpted portion of a forensic examination report that you made? Yes, it is. And is that in relation to an Apple iPhone with serial number FCDR2ON2GRWN? Yes, ma'am. I move to admit Government Exhibit 913. Any objection? No objection. That's in evidence. Do you want it published? Yes, please. Jury only or everybody? This can be everybody. Government Exhibit 913 was received in evidence. Exhibit published. So now, looking at the first page of Government Exhibit 913, does it here indicate that you're the examiner that created this extraction? That's correct. And where it, under the part heading that says device information, the Apple ID is listed as ib.drussell@icloud.com. What is an Apple ID? So an Apple ID is usually an email address that identifies you uniquely to Apple. So if you have an iPhone or a MacBook Pro or something like that, they use that to track you and to bike up your information for your apps and for other things like that. And then looking down further on this series of serial numbers for the phone you examined, an IMEI number. One moment. Can you explain what an IMEI number is? Now, all you Apple users out there, I hope y'all paying attention to what I'm putting down here, because they telling y'all how Apple is tracking every move that you make. And I'm sure all phone companies have a way of doing this, but for Apple users in particular, pay attention, because this is how they tracking y'all. They storing all your data. They're storing stuff that you're texting, all that on that little iCloud email that y'all using, that they got y'all thinking is a cool email address to have. So now, instead of getting emails to your Gmail account, which is just as bad because Google be tracking everything, but your Yahoo account and different other type of email addresses, they've convinced people to send all their stuff to the iCloud.com email address. So now they're just keeping a record of your entire life. So back to this. Sure, the IMEI is the International Mobile Equipment Identifier. It is the number that the phone is. It's like a serial number for that phone, for the phone system, for the GSM system. So is it unique to the phone? Yes, it is. Now, under device information that's last used, MSISDN, and a phone number plus 312-975-5608, is that the phone number associated with the phone you examine? Yes, it is. And by the way, you testified earlier about the IMEI number. Are you also familiar, based on your training and experience, with something called an ESN number? Yes, that is the electronic serial number. Can you explain to the jury what that is? So, an ESN, it gets a little bit of alphabet soup, but the ESN is for a different kind of cellular network. So, for instance, Verizon is on what is called a CDMA network, and AT&T is on a GSM network. And a phone that is on the CDMA network would have an ESN, whereas a phone that is on the GSM network has an IMEI. Is it apart from network? Is it unique to a particular phone, that ESN number? Yes, it is. We just went over the last phone number associated with this phone you examined, this 312-975-5608 number. Your Honor, at this point, I'd like to offer Government Exhibit 132A, which is a certified business record from T-Mobile for subscriber information for that number. Canick, no objection. Donnelly, okay, that's in evidence. I'm just turning to page 3 of that exhibit, and this is information for the subscriber associated with 312-975-5608. Subscriber name is Indie Bill Corp. with an address in Chicago, Illinois. Activation date 6/12/2018. Termination date 7/14/2019. And the device number listed as 35333-207-4522-087. Now, I'm putting back on the screen, and guys, Indie Bill is Don Russell's company, or was Don Russell's company. Now, I'm putting back on the screen Government Exhibit 913, and that corresponds with the IMEI number on this report. Now, turning to page 2 of Government Exhibit 913, under the section that says Contents, is this simply a summary of the types of content you were able to extract from this phone? Yes, that's what it is. And in the part where it says Chats, iMessage, and a phone number ending 5608, is that the phone number that the phone used to engage in iMessage chats? Yes, it is. I'm going to turn to the 5th page of the report. Sorry for the jury only, please. Now, does this, obviously there's some redactions on this page. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Now, focusing on the 2 chats in chat messages in blue, are those coming from a user 786-502-5659 to the phone examined? Yes, that's correct. And these are 2 messages, and the first one was sent on December 21st, 2018 at 9:50, and the second message December 21st, 2018 at 9:50 as well. Correct. And where it says the same Shotwell Ryan, what does that signify? That was the contact name put in the contacts for that particular person in the phone. So this number is saved in the phone under that name. Is that correct? Correct. And then under where is a name, there is a name Kelly with the last name that I won't say out loud, and a phone number beginning in 210. So you guys know that's Kelly Rogers. Where it says status read and date read 12/21/2018, 11/17. What does that signify, the status and the read? The status signifies that the message was received by who it was sent to, and that they actually read it, and the time and the date when that occurred. And then the second message, there's another name, Faith, followed by a last name that I won't read out loud, and another number beginning in 210, and that also indicates status read. Correct? That is correct. Now, I'm turning to another page of the exhibit. This is from the contact section of the phone, correct? That's correct. And what's listed here is a contact, June Barrett, and a telephone number 312-513-1020, and email jbarrett@indiebill.com. That's correct. Now, turning to the next page of the exhibit, this is also part of the contact section, correct? Yes, it is. There is a contact saved as RSK with the phone number 1-678-756-8219. That's correct. Now, turning to another page under the contact section, there is a contact, Shotwell Ryan. Shotwell, Ryan. This can be for everyone, I'm sorry. And there's an email address associated with the contact, cashmicouture@icloud.com. Then there are different numbers associated with that contact, correct? That's correct. Your Honor, I'd like to offer Government Exhibit 915 as a certified business record from Apple related to the cashmicouture@gmail. Related to an iCloud account. Donnelly, any objection? Canick, no. Donnelly, okay, that's in evidence. Shahada. I'd like to publish Government Exhibit 915. And here is an email address listed at I'm thinking cashmycouture at gmail.com. Associated with first name Kavantani and the last name Jones, and also Cash Jones, and an address, same address throughout. Turning to another page of Exhibit 913, and here you have a section called User Accounts. What does that section show? So if you have an email account or some app that has a username and password or some other identifying information like that, the phone will keep it in one particular spot called the keychain, and it will display it when we run it through. It won't give us the passwords, but it will give us the usernames associated with it. Looking here, is there a user account associated with a yahoo.com? Yes, there is. And the username is :Don. Right. And also then a user account associated with my AT&T with the email address ib.drussell@gmail.com. That's correct. Now I'm turning to the next page. Does this section include various types of communication sent by the phone you examine or received by the phone you examine? Yes, it does. And at the top one, is that an email or listed under 332? Is that an email from December 4th, 2018 from ib.drussell@gmail.com, Don Russell, to cashtalkme@gmail.com, Cash Jones, forwarding something titled The Survivors Exposed? Correct. And Your Honor, I'd like to offer Government Exhibit 914C, certified business records from or subscriber information from Google for cashtalkme@gmail.com. No objection. That's in evidence also. You can publish. Do you want to publish it? I will publish it very briefly. Whatever you want to do. And here, the name associated with cashtalkme@gmail.com is listed as Cash Jones. Looking below at another email listed as 133 forward from Don at IndieBill to ibdrussell, donrussell@gmail.com. It's an email signed respectfully, Don Russell, President, CEO, IndieBill Corp., with the number 312-975-5608. And just turning back to the first page of Government Exhibit 913, that's the last used phone number of the phone you examined, correct? That's correct. Going back to this page with the various communications, I'm going to turn to the communication here, 1342. Which is an incoming email to ibdrussell@gmail.com. The subject line, alternate email address removed from your account. It says, "Hi, the following alternate email address was removed from your Yahoo account with an I, then some stars, 11@gmail.com. This email charge was made on December 4th, 2018. And finally, I'm going to turn to the last page of the exhibit where I'm pointing next to the number 8. What are we looking at here? This is my mic died. Donnelly, well, fix it. Witness, sorry about that. Donnelly is off the chain. So what are we looking at here? This is a thumbnail of a video that was taken by the phone, or at least by an iPhone 6S Plus. That was saved on this phone that I examined. So this video was saved on the device you examined. Is that correct? Yes. Here it is, just a thumbnail of that video. Correct. I'm now going to show the Government Exhibit 913A, which I think we need to switch to. This is for witness only, witness only. Prior to your testimony here today, did you have an opportunity to view the video that we just went over that was saved in the report? Sorry, saved in the phone you examined. Yes, I did. And is what I'm showing you the video that was extracted from that phone? Yes, it is. I would offer 913A. No objection. All right. If we could play it, jury only, please. So the video recording was played. The video recording stopped. I think it's only a few seconds, so I paused it. Now, Your Honor, at this point, I would offer Government Exhibit 916, which is certified business records from Google subscriber information for the email account ibdrussell@gmail.com. No objection. That's in evidence. And if I could publish it, please? Sure. And looking at the subscriber information, ibdrussell@gmail.com, the subscriber name is Don Russell. And now I would offer Government Exhibit 816 as a certified official record, a birth certificate for Donnell Russell. Any objection? No objection. And here's the name of the person for the birth certificate: Donnell Anton Shadell Russell, and mother's name, June Annette Barrett. No further questions. Any cross-examination? None. Okay, the witness can step down. Do you have any additional witnesses to call? Geddes: Yes, Your Honor. The government calls Rosanna Corrado. Raise your right hand. Okay, so she's sworn in. Donnelly gives her disclaimer. She asks the woman to take off her mask. So Rosanna Corrado, having been duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. Good afternoon. By whom are you employed? I'm employed by DANY, the District Attorney's Office of New York, and I am assigned to HSI. Sorry, which one? I did not hear what you said. Oh, sorry. Donnelly: I do not know if your mic is working. I think it is. I think you need to speak up a little bit. Is that better? Yes. Okay, sorry. Which unit are you assigned to? I am employed DANY, the District Attorney's Office of New York, and I am assigned to Homeland Security. Donnelly: Go ahead. And now, okay, stop. Geddes is the one doing the questioning. And how long have you been assigned to Homeland Security? It will be 2 years in October. And what do you do for them? I am an intelligence analyst. Have you participated in an investigation of Robert Kelly? Yes, I have. And as part of your investigation, have you reviewed telephone records? Yes, I have. The government offers pursuant to Federal Rule of Evidence 8036, and then she goes through like a whole slew. It's about 20 documents that she's entering here. And since we don't really know what the documents are, there's no need in me reading the numbers. So Donnelly tells her, slow down just a little. Geddes: Sorry. That's all right. And then she repeats the number and lets us know that all of these documents are telephone records. Donnelly asks any objections. Canick says no. Donnelly: Okay, those are in evidence. And then they list all the numbers again, stating that they were received in evidence. And then Geddes picks up, I am showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 149. Can you see that, or do you want me to bring it to you? No, it's okay. I can see it. Do you recognize what's shown in 149? Yes. And just generally speaking, what is shown there? It is a summary chart of the excerpts of some of the telephone records that I reviewed. And does it show contact between 2 particular numbers and 4 other numbers? Yes. 5 other numbers? Yes. The government offers Government Exhibit 149. Any objection? None. Donnelly: Okay, that is in evidence. Geddes: And may I publish, please? So you testified that this is a summary chart showing contact between 2 numbers and 5 other numbers. I want to start with those 2 numbers. There's one ending in 3379300 and one ending in 7476569. And I am going to show what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 482. I'll put it right below. And that same number ending in 9300 is saved as a telephone number for Rob under phone mobile home, and that number ending in 6569 is saved as a number for the studio. And then you testified that this document shows telephone records between those 2 numbers, the 9300 and the 6569 telephone numbers, and 5 other telephone numbers, the first one of which ends in 2117. And I am going to show what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 210P. And before I do, just to remind, I am going to put on these all are in evidence. Government Exhibit 210D is a photograph taken from, saved on a call phone, And then from that same series is a 210P, and it lists a phone number 630-886-2837, which is one of the telephone numbers listed in Government Exhibit 149. And I am now going to show what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 133A, which is subscriber information for that same telephone number ending in 2837, and it lists an electronic serial number, also known as an ESN, and it's a long number and it ends in 5518. And I am now going to show Government Exhibit 140A and 141A, both of which are in evidence. And this, just beginning with 140A, this is subscriber records for 630-379-1136, another telephone number listed in Government Exhibit 149, and this subscriber record for the phone number ending in 1136 also includes an ESN, and it is the same electronic serial number as that listed in the prior exhibit for the phone number ending in 2837, and that one also has the same number. It ends in 5518, much longer number. And so she basically does this for all the exhibits that she is about to show. And so we find out as we scroll down, in addition, there are 3 other telephone numbers listed on Government Exhibit 149. One of those telephone numbers is ending in 2117. And that I am going to show Government Exhibit 131A now in evidence, which is another subscriber record. And so basically we learned that the subscriber is Latrinia Woods at an address in Streamwood, Illinois. And then she goes on and she talks about some more numbers. And at this point, like, all this information that she's giving is not really relevant. I mean, it's relevant to entering the evidence, but we're going to skip over it. And so the government offers a certified official record, Government Exhibit 813. And then there was no objection. It was entered into evidence. And then she provides a certification of a birth record for Geronda Johnson. And the mother's name is listed as Latrinia Woods. And just directing your attention to Government Exhibit 149. Oh, actually, there's one additional phone number listed on this summary chart, and that is one ending in 5655, and that was going to be Exhibit 160. And then she asks, do you recognize what's shown in Government Exhibit 160? Yes, I do. And what is that? It is a frequency chart that I created. And is it a frequency chart showing the telephone numbers that were frequently in contact with telephone number 630-336-5655 between a certain period? Yes. The government offers Government Exhibit 160, Canick, no objection, Donnelly, okay, it's in evidence. Geddes, and may I publish? Yes. And there are several telephone numbers listed in Government Exhibit 160. Does this show all of the telephone numbers that were in contact with 5655 during that time period? No, it just shows the most frequent numbers that were in contact. And so does this one list, when it says count, what does that refer to? It refers to the amount of communication those numbers had with the 5655 number in the time periods listed in the minute date, the minimum date, maximum date columns. And when it says minimum date, is that the first date in that period of June 12, 2009 to July 9, 2009, when there was a contact between that particular contact ID and the 5655 telephone? Correct. And where it says the max date, is that the end date between that time period between June 12th to July 9th, that there was a contact between that particular contact ID and the 5655 telephone? Yep. All right. The second telephone number listed ends in 19. Is that 1900? Is that correct? Yes. And I'm showing what's in evidence as 210X. And is that same telephone number ending in 1900? Yes. And it's saved in the telephone as Keonia. Lord have mercy. Keonia. Is that how she pronounced her name? That's Geronda Pace's friend that she met at the courthouse. Okay. Kiona. I can't remember how she pronounced her name when she was on Dr. Rice. And there's also below that some contact with a telephone number ending in 6519, and I'm showing that's in evidence as 210Y. And this is a photograph of a contact saved in this particular phone, and the contact for that's saved as mom lists that same 6519 phone. And then I'm showing what's in evidence as 210Q. Before I do, there's a phone contact with a telephone number ending in 2708. Okay, so she's given like a lot of information, and if I'm the jury at this point, I am confused as hell as to all these numbers that she's given out, and probably not remembering who all these telephone numbers begin with. So then she picks up and says, and this is a subscriber record for that same telephone number ending in 6519, and it shows the subscriber name as Latrinia Woods, which is Geronda Pace's mom, the same subscriber that was listed as a subscriber for the 2837, the phone number ending in 2837, as well as the name of the mother of Geronda Johnson, as set forth in Government Exhibit 813. All right. So now we're referring to Government Exhibit 149. You testified earlier that this reflects telephone calls between the telephone numbers ending in 9300 and 6569. The two numbers that were saved respectively as Rob and the studio in that prior Government Exhibit as well. So is telephone contact between those two numbers and those 5 numbers, is that correct? Correct. And what is the range of contact between those two top numbers and the 5 numbers below? When is the first contact? The first contact is on June 2nd, 2009. And I'm going to turn to the final page. When is the last contact indicated? It is January 24th, 2010. And on the exhibit at the top, there are telephone numbers listed. What are the telephone numbers? I'm going to turn to the front, the first page. What are the telephone numbers that are included in that telephone number list? Is that the ones ending in 9300 and 6569? Yes. And where it says direction, incoming or outgoing, what does an incoming call denote in light of as you prepared this report? So in the telephone number column, those are the numbers that had the cell phone records that I reviewed. So those are the numbers that we received records for. And then in the contact telephone number, those are the numbers in the telephone number column we're contacting. So in the direction column, you're able to tell if it was an incoming or outgoing call to those contact numbers. So for example, in the first line, the 9300 is the telephone number. It's the record that I reviewed. It received an incoming call from the 2117 number in the contact number column. And fair to say that the contact telephone number is just the telephone number that was in contact with what's listed under the telephone number. Are y'all as confused as I am at this point? Correct. Okay, I'm showing the witness what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 148. Do you recognize what is shown in the Exhibit 148? Yes, what is that? It is another summary chart I created, and does it reflect contact between that same number that you just testified about ending in 2117, for which there was a subscriber information indicating that it was subscribed to a Latrinia Woods, as well as the phone number ending in 8200. Yes. The government offers Exhibit 148. Canick, no objection. Donnelly, okay. Geddes, may I publish, please? Donnelly, yes. And what is the date range of the contact between these two telephone numbers? The first contact is on May 31st, 2009, and the last is June 7th, 2009. And I am showing what's now in evidence as government, whatever number she said. And this is a subscriber record for Jermaine Maxey. Now, Jermaine Maxey is Ruby Chris, right? For that same telephone number, the one ending in 8200, that's included on Government Exhibit 148. I'm showing this witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibits 150, 151, 153, 154, and 145. Do you recognize what I just put in front of you? Yes. And generally speaking, what are they? These. Some of them are excerpts from telephone records, and I believe there was another summary chart that was in the stack. Yes. I just showed you 154. Is that an example of a summary chart? Yes. And did you prepare those summary charts? Yes. And are they prepared in a similar manner to the summary charts that you previously testified about? Yes. Okay, the government offers 145, 154, 153, 151, 150, and 150. No objection. Any objection? Okay, he said no objection, woman. My God. Can I see counsel at the side for a minute? No need for the court reporter. Sidebar held off the record with the court and counsel only. Sidebar concluded. In open court, jury present. Okay, once again, she's interrupting the government side as well, as you all can see. The government also offers 156 into evidence. Canick, no objection. Geddes, the government offers 156. There was no objection. Donnelly, okay, that's in evidence. The government also offers, 147 and 156. There was no objection. It was entered into evidence. Then she showed another exhibit, 159. Donnelly, I don't think there's any objection to this either. Is there, counsel? Canick, no. Those are in evidence as well. And basically, Donnelly is telling her, girl, hurry up. Get to the point. So then she goes through all of this with all these exhibits. So then we get down. It is a map plotting. So she says, and before you do, did you prepare this exhibit? The witness said, I did. Can you describe what is shown in 159B? The witness says it is map plotting out the cell site location data for numbers ending in 0880, 7283, 4738 for the time period between September 29, 2015 and October 3rd, 2015. And at the bottom, there is a key, and just referring to the last four digits of each phone number, the 0880 is the denoted by pink. Child, then she talking about these different colors. Is that correct? Correct. And on exhibit 159, oh my God. So she's basically outlining in this exhibit all these color-coded dots for the numbers that she's entered, that we have no clue what these numbers are. And I'm hoping she will eventually get to it because we're running out of time. So then she says she's showing into evidence 159. Can you describe what is shown in these three boxes? So for example, starting with where my finger is. So these points, the 3 points plot specific communications and the appropriate cell tower and location that they were hitting off of at the time of these communications. So the first one is September 29th, 2015 at 4:29. And the phone that made that communication or received that communication was 0, ending in 0880. And is that same key that you just testified about, that same color key that you just testified about on 159B, is that also reflected? Are those same colors used in 159E? Yes, those same colors are used throughout all of the maps that I created. And the time that is indicated here, is that reflected in what is known as UTC? Yes. And then again, there are other dots here which don't have the particular callouts reflected. Are those 3 callouts just a sampling of the date and time of those particular communications? Yes. Fair to say that if it listed everyone, there might be bubbles everywhere on the map. Yes, and the location of the particular call, the one at 429 UTC, does that show that the phone is approximately in Manhattan? Yes. And is Manhattan an island? Yes. To get out of Manhattan, do you have to cross over one of the waters surrounding Manhattan? Yes. And there appear to be a series of dots right around where my finger is pointed, in the purple dots and the blue dots. Do you see that? Yes. Is that right around where the Lincoln Tunnel is located? Yes. And are there then subsequently dots over here in New Jersey? Yes. And I use the term subsequently because do those locations occur after the communication at 4:29 a.m.? Yes. And then just briefly, I am showing you what's in evidence as 159D. Is that just a close-up photograph of a portion that was shown in 159B? Yes. And do you know what state or where this occurred? This looks like Pennsylvania. And you can see that there's some communications around State College, Pennsylvania. Is that correct? Yes. And then similarly showing you 159I. Again, is that just a close-up of communications that are shown on 159B? Yes, it's a close-up of communication in Nebraska. And I am showing, right, just to be clear, you said it's a close-up of communication. Those dots reflect the location data for those particular cell towers. Is that correct? Correct. Thank you. And I am showing what's in evidence as 159A. This is just a Google map prepared showing the travel from New York to Oakland, California. Is that correct? Yes. And this path shown in blue, does that show a path driving in part along Interstate 80? Yes. And finally, I am showing you 159C. Again, is that just another close-up of communications that are shown on 159B? Yes. And again, where are these communications generally? Excuse me. They're in the state of California. And you see that there are cities such as Oakland and San Francisco written. Is that correct? Yes. And you use the term, I think, interchangeably. Use the term pink and purple for that color. What are they indicating? The same particular cell phone? Yes. And again, using the same key? Yes. Nothing further. All right. Any cross-examination? No. All right. You can step down. And I'm thinking that takes us right to 1 o'clock, which is when we are going to break. So we have a long weekend. I won't see you again until Thursday. That is obviously a very long time, and I am sure you will miss us. But I want to just caution you again because we will be apart for so long. Please do not read anything about the case. Do not Google anything. Do not look on social media. Do not listen to any news reports. Report to the court during that time. If anybody tries to contact you or contact other juror, let us know. I hope you have a relaxing few days. For those who are observing the holiday, have a good holiday, and I will see you next Thursday. All right, thank you. All rise. The jury exits. Okay, everybody can have a seat. Court deputy, you may be seated. Donnelly, just to be clear, the person who came in momentarily is a lawyer. I have on a conference after this case. He was very early. Anything that anybody wants to bring up before we break for the, I was going to say weekend, but for a long time. Geddes, did Your Honor want to address the defendant's motion? Donnelly, yes, I do. So I don't want to take a whole lot of time with this. I am just looking at Mr. Scholar's letter. And the point of contention is the extent to which the government should be permitted to offer these videos depicting, I guess, sexual contact among and between the defendant and various people. My first question is any of the other two people who appear, are they testifying? Geddes, yes, Your Honor. Donnelly, okay. I think that might answer the question. I know that some of your submission was premised on the assumption that they wouldn't be testifying. Do you want to think about that and let me know if that affects your position is on this, what your position is on this evidence? Mr. Scholar, yes, Your Honor, thank you. Donnelly, okay, so if you want to submit something in between then, I don't want to ruin your weekend or your holiday, but it's always better if I get it a little bit sooner. The government has a chance to respond and I can think about it. Scholar, sure. When would you like it? Donnelly, when would I like it? Scholar, not like it, but when should I submit it? Donnelly, I mean, as long as I get it by Tuesday or something. Is that okay with the government? I mean, I don't anticipate it is going to be a really long thing. It just gives me some time to contemplate it and for the government to respond. So if you get me something by Tuesday, you get a response by Wednesday. I'll get back to you on Thursday. All right. Mr. Scholar, thank you, Your Honor. Geddes, thank you. Donnelly, thanks so much. Anything else? Canick, Your Honor, during the testimony of Pace, I was about to make inquiry of a relationship that she had with Maxie, and basically to establish that they had communications and other things going on in the relationship. The telephone records that the government submitted, I think there was some communication between Maxie and Pace, and precluding me from going into that now. I can't really argue that I need to argue to the jury with respect to that line of communication. Donnelly, I confess I have no recollection of this line of questioning. Canick, well, what I would do, Your Honor, because I don't want to belabor it right now, is get it in the transcript, send it to Your Honor, and then we can revisit it when we come back. All right. Geddes, I am happy to address it right now because the communication is exactly as Geronda Pace testified, that she was invited to the defendant's residence in Olympia Fields by someone named Jermaine Maxey, also known as Bubba, and that they exchanged communications as they arranged to go to meet him. And it happened in May of 2009, which is exactly what those telephone records show. That does not alter the government's position that it is a violation of Federal Rule of Evidence 412 to then further go into any subsequent sexual relationship between Geronda Pace and anybody else. Donnelly, oh, I do recall that, yes. We can talk about this further because I think people have places to be. Canick, okay. Donnelly, but I am not inclined to change my ruling on that. Geddes, thank you. Donnelly, all right. The defendant exited the courtroom. Judge Ann M. Donnelly exited the courtroom. Matter adjourned to September 9th, 2021 at 9:30 a.m. So you could enter information that Bubba invited Geronda to Mr. Kelly's house. And that's how she ended up getting at the house. But you can't introduce evidence about a sexual relationship between Geronda and Bubba that might have led to him offering her the invitation because he received something in exchange, and then allegedly Geronda gave him $4,000 at some point, I guess with her settlement money. So none of that can come into play. Okay, keep on doing what you're doing, all right, because y'all just setting up for an appeals. They have, at this point, if this man is found guilty, they have multiple directions to go with an appeal because Donnelly is out of control. So guys, that's it for me. Go ahead, leave your comments below, rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.